good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to an extra special edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm joined by co-hosts Darren Woodhead and Tony Robinson today, where we're going to welcome a guest onto the show. He's currently an assistant manager with Radcliffe FC, who you may formerly have known as Radcliffe Borough, where he's working under another former guest and former Accringtonian, Bobby Grant. He is also former head of the Accrington Stanley Academy from 2006 through 2012. We're very excited to welcome onto the show Phil Hackney. Thank you so much for joining us today. Phil, how are you doing?
Thank you very much. Yeah, very well, thank you. Really pleased to be on and give a contribution. Just before we start, I would like to just offer my thoughts for Phil Edwards, who's currently in hospital ill. I'm still in contact with Danielle, his wife, and obviously we're all wishing him a speedy recovery.
Well, yeah, well said.
Yeah, well yes, said. Absolutely.
Well said, Phil. Yeah, I know he's a player that you know well, and more importantly, a lad you know well. I've been in touch with him also, trying to keep tabs on the situation, and we're all rooting for Phil, definitely. So, thanks for joining us. There's too many Phils on this call. Yeah. So Phil Hackney. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. I know Phil Kennedy always joins us. So let's start talking about your football life, Phil. How did you first start getting into football? Where did it all begin for you?
Well, I suppose like most people, it was a schoolboy. I played for the school at every level. I also represented the City Boys. I'm from Lincoln. And I went right through school, grammar school, and played for the City. And I suppose I always had that inkling it'd be nice to be a professional footballer, but even though I trialled at Coventry, which didn't come to anything, I suppose the best thing I could do is I played for Lincoln City in the FA Youth Cup. Long time ago, they were in the 4th division of the Football League in them days. And then, obviously, I had to go to work as I grew up, and I played semi-professional football for Lincoln United, who I suppose you could say are the second standing club in the city. And the manager was actually one of my former history teachers. And so I had quite a decent semi-pro career, I suppose. Without winning too many trophies, I suppose, but I always enjoyed the game, and that's really I was a bit of an all-rounder. I represented the school at quite a number of different sports, from athletics to swimming and basketball. So I was always involved in sport, and obviously football was the main one, I suppose. Brought up as a Spurs fan, so I followed Tottenham from a very early age.
Boo!
That won't go down well with.
Unfortunately, Accrington Stanley weren't in the league at that time, though, Darren.
Yeah. Oh, Phil Kennedy follows Arsenal, so that's what it is.
Well, it's a good job we're a long way apart.
Yeah,
we've all got problems, haven't we?
Yeah. We've all got crosses to bear.
All in good fun. I'm always the guy that says, football is better without rivals. Over here, like in baseball, the Yankees and the Red Sox, they wouldn't want to have each other get relegated if that was such a thing over here, because, playing each other makes it more fun. And, Arsenal and Spurs, or, Liverpool, Man United, any of those big rivalries.
Yeah,
definitely. So how did you? So when you finished playing, Phil, how did you start going into coaching? Because obviously it's played a massive part of your life, hasn't it? That
it has. I was actually still playing when I changed jobs. I actually joined the prison service. I was playing snooker for a team who one of our colleagues was a prison officer, and he said, "You do a lot of sports, don't you? What, you play cricket, you play football, a number of other things. Why don't you become a PEI in the prison service?" And I didn't even know they had PE instructors in the prison service. And as it happened, I thought, right, I put an application in. I was successful. Trained, I had to be an officer first on the landings. So I went into an old Victorian prison. And then during my training to be a PE instructor, which was an 18-month course, I actually had the opportunity through the prison service to take my prelim award, the prelim badge, as they used to call it in the old days. Successfully attained that as part of my training. And that was the start, really, amongst a lot of other, obviously, PE qualifications. I suppose at that early stage in my career, that was probably the highest qualification that I could hold. I was still playing semi-pro, or certainly definitely training semi-pro with Lincoln United. And it really came to fruition, I suppose, when I turned up for training one night, and the gaffer, Fred Green, the former teacher, he said, "Hey, you've got your prelim badge, haven't you?" So I said, "Yeah." He said, "Right, well, you can take the session because I'm going to be busy. I've got a player to sign." And that was like no planning, no guidance. Didn't tell me what session to put on. So I just went and took the session. It absolutely battered it down with rain. It was a November night. So I just thought, right, I'll just keep on playing. And I think the session I did off the top of my head was prevent crosses, prevent goal scoring opportunities from crosses or something like that. So I worked on the back four and the midfield. And that was my first real incursion into full-blown coaching. And I thought, wow, that's a nightmare, that. But I came off and they all came up and saying, wow, what a good session. Why are you still playing? Why aren't you coaching? And I suppose that was really, once I qualified as a PE instructor and got moved to Leicester, I thought, right, well, I'll have a look at, I coach, obviously, my son's teams. But I was at a young offenders in a Borstal, and the PE principal officer in charge of the gym, he said, "Oh, you're the ex-footballer, aren't you?" So I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "Well, you're in charge of the rugby for the next season." So I ended up coaching the rugby union team, which I also got a prelim badge for, by the way. But I loved it. I loved the game playing. I'd never played it. Well, I'd had a bit of a mash at grammar school, but I was more in the football team. So I suppose it was back to my roots a little bit, and I enjoyed it, actually. I used the strategies and sort of stuff that I'd learnt in football to actually use in rugby. So that's where it really kicked off in terms of the actual coaching. And then I progressed to become an A licensed coach for football and a tutor for the Football Association. So I was what was the prelim became the level 2. And then I went on to deliver the UEFA B, what's the level 3, on a regular basis. After a number of moves around the country with my career, I settled in Southport, and that's where I delivered the vast majority of FA qualifications.
So, Phil, it's Tony here, and I see then you ended up from 2006 to 2012 at Accrington Stanley as the academy manager. So after all your getting your badges and moving around, how did that come about?
I was delivering a level 3 UEFA B at Liverpool's Academy at Kirby. And two of the participants, learners, was John Coleman and Peter Kavanagh. And during the actual course, John and Peter came up and said, Phil, do you mind if we get off early tonight? We're in a cup final. So I said, yeah, no problem. And they did their bits in the way they went, got off early. And the next morning they came in the academy with a cup. And it was a cup that they won with Accrington Stanley. I don't know what the actual, I think it was a League Cup, I'm not sure. But it was when they were in the, I think they were in the Northern Prem then. It must have been around 2005, 2006. And then I always, as an instructor, as a tutor, you tend to stay in touch because you get each other's phone numbers as part of the course so that you, if they've got any questions or anything they need to ask you about. And out of the blue, the Clitheroe Football Club job came up, manager. And I thought, right, come on, I've done all this coach education and coached various, I suppose, grassroots teams. Why not go and give a little bit of your experience back to what is a semi-pro club? And I never got a reply. So I phoned John Coleman and said, hi, John, Phil Hackney, I've applied for the Clitheroe job. Do you know who the chairman is? Because I've not had a reply. I don't know if he's actually received my CV. And he said, well, why don't you send me your CV? I said, oh, so me thinking, if I send it to John, he'll pass it on to Clitheroe and I'll get an interview or whatever. And lo and behold, about, I don't know, probably a week, 10 days passed, and I got a phone call from John. All right, John. Said, yeah. He said, do you fancy coming to our game on Saturday? They're presenting the conference trophy. So I said, oh, yeah, that'd be nice. Thinking it's a nice invitation for his old tutor or whatever. So I came there. John was late arriving, and I sat in the lounge, you know, the old lounge where you walked in off the car park. And Eric Wally, who I didn't know at the time, obviously, and he walked past, and I just said, good afternoon. There I was in my tie and whatever. And he said, all right, who are you? I said, oh, I'm Phil Hackney. I've come to see John Coleman. Oh, he's late again. And he disappeared. Anyway, he came back out and he said, have you had a cup of tea? I said, no, it's all right, thanks. Excuse me. So I sat there and waited, and John finally arrived, and he said, right, come on, come through, see the chairman, who I didn't realise was the man who had offered to make me a cup of tea. So I went through to the chairman's office, and there sat Eric. Said, oh, take a seat there. Said, right, so you're going to come in and run our youth team, blah, 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 blah. There you go. And I was absolutely amazed, and sort of said, I looked at John, and John looked at me, and I said, oh, thanks very much. Like, went out, watched the match, watched the presentation, and then started preparing to open a brand new academy in the Football League. And that's how John being on the course. Later, Jimmy Bell came on. I took him on his course. And also now, I always send them a text message every year wishing them all the best. And I included John Doolan for this year. And John sent me back a nice little text saying, oh, hello, Phil. What a great surprise receiving that text. Thank you very much. I still remember that very first course you took me on for my start on the football coaching ladder.
Great. John Doolan, he's been on the show also. And, of course, John Coleman and Jimmy Bell get so many accolades and are so well-deserved. But I think that it's forgotten maybe at times what a big part of the coaching staff that John Doolan is, and that it's been, about 6 seasons that John Doolan's been with the staff now.
See, I think John Doolan is like Charlie Watts of the Rolling Stones. Is always in the background and didn't get enough credit.
I like it. And that's actually a good segue into what is perhaps our most popular and most famous segment on the show. And that's something that it was the brainchild of Tony Robinson. And it started out with some kind of North England versus South England questions. And then we did have a Rolling Stones question at one point. Well, I'm just going to turn it over to Tony Robinson now for what is the world famous rapid fire.
I actually hate that introduction, Phil, but anyway. This is just some fun stuff, Phil. We just light-hearted stuff, no wrong or right answer. We always start off with some standard ones. With your fish and chips, do you prefer mushy or garden peas?
Yeah, mushy.
Good man. Red or brown sauce on your bacon sandwich?
Brown.
Black pudding with your full English?
Oh, definitely.
What's your do you have a favorite brand or a musician that you like?
Slade.
Okay, we haven't had that one before, I don't think.
Oh, that's a new one.
Yeah, definitely.
And Foreigner. Foreigner is the other one.
Oh yeah, I like Foreigner.
That's another new one, but yeah, I like it. Good.
Double Vision. Yeah, no, I know that one.
After your bar tab in Accrington, you're gonna have Double Vision.
Yeah, especially if Darren's with.
Probably where it came from.
Yeah, might be. Do you have a favorite takeaway, Phil?
Yeah, Chinese.
That's a popular one. Living or dead, can you name 2 people you'd like to sit down and have dinner with?
Probably my dad.
Yeah.
Very, very wise, big man in both body and thought. And yeah, definitely. I'd love to see what he would say now that I'm where I am now and, with a family and all that lot. Yeah, I'd love to do that.
And anybody from the football field that you would like to have a meal with?
Bobby Robson.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, excellent.
Met him on many occasions. Our training used to take in Lilleshall National Sports Centre. And when Bobby Robson was in charge of the England setup, he reverted back to Lilleshall because it was where, obviously, they won the World Cup from. And our PE training used to take place, well, it still does. They still train at Lilleshall National Sports Centre. Had some he was so humble, and he was absolutely amazed at the job that we did as PE instructors in the prison service. And they were just saying, the types of things that we got up to, or some of the incidents we had to look at. He was really down to earth. We used to have a cup of tea together, and quite an inspirational person.
That's probably the best answer we've had to that question. I think that's your 2 selections are. That's just a great answer, Phil. Last one for me is if Accrington Stanley were promoted to the championship, would that be a bigger story than Leicester winning the Premier League?
I'm probably a bit biased, and I would say yes, because I look now, and obviously I still always look for the results. I'm still in contact with John and Jimmy, and I would, I look at the crowds that we're getting now again. We're lucky to clear 3,000, and we're in the first division. I always think that hiatus of being out the league, Accrington lost all their supporters to Burnley and Blackburn. and it's going to take a massive shift to get those supporters back in the stadium, if you like. And I know there's been some fantastic work done with the stadium, and I know there's going to be new dressing rooms. You know, I know that I remember Newcastle United and Roy Hodgson coming down and changing in a hotel. I was there when we played Newcastle.
He changed at the Duncan House too, didn't he? It was the Duncan House that they changed.
Yeah. But I could understand why, because my apprentices use that away dressing room sometimes with the cold showers, and it really was at the bottom of the league, I suppose. So if Accrington got into the Championship, I mean, what John and Jimmy and obviously now John have done over the years is absolutely fantastic. I just can't praise them enough for what they've done. And I think it's, you know, round pegs in square holes. I think you've got the round pegs in the round holes at Accrington.
Yeah, that's well said. That's a great answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think what you mentioned in terms of the infrastructure and the way that the grounds are improving and the improvements to the changing rooms, and then, you know, of course, the growth of the academy, which is, you know, something that you were at the forefront of starting. I mean, just looking at Accrington, it's been about 5 years now since we started this podcast, and just seeing the change in the infrastructure in 5 years alone is just nothing short of incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I look back now, and I think it's incredible the amount of players and obviously staff that I'm still, you know, Andy Dibble, I've been in contact with him all the time since we worked together at Accrington, but it's 10 years since I left, and I've been back a few times for games. I obviously came back with Morecambe as well, but yeah, it's just I keep seeing all the different things that's happening, and I look at the photographs and I think, wow, how that has moved on. And I remember Mick Schultz. I always remember when Morecambe they had their new stadium built, and we called it the Concrete Tunnel. But I tell you what, I wished if we'd have had that stadium at the time when I was at Accrington. But yeah, I think it's going to take something phenomenal, really, to get the football back into the stadium. But you know, if they can survive on the way they're doing, you know, sell a player here or there. That's, you know, John's been excellent with his dealings in terms of bringing players and developing them and moving them on. You know,
you did right there, Phil, with the Burnley Blackburn issue. And although we lost obviously a lot of supporters when we went bust, but even up to that point, there were a lot of people within the town who supported Burnley and Blackburn due to the fact they were both in the 60s when they were massive clubs at that time in the first division. It's an ongoing situation, but I can really start to see signs of that changing. I know it's slow, and it's slower than it will be for a lot of other clubs due to geography, but we are making inroads, and like you said, it's going to take some time. Just one thing that I wanted to just ask you about, just touching on it, is that when you think about it, the time you were at the club were financially some of the most challenging and difficult of the club's history, weren't they? First years in the Football League. How was that?
It's really hard. And yet, you know, none of us let it get to us. I don't think it ever impacted on us to think, this is going down the pan. And we actually did everything we could. Eric made sure we did everything we could to try and save as much as we can. And I remember can you remember when we did the video, the television series?
Yes.
About the milk advert again and all that lot. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I used to cringe sometimes, some of the comments that Eric said.
I think we all did.
I was in the office one day, and then I was doing some work, and he said, "Why you got these lights on? Open the blinds." And it was, you open the blinds and you're looking into the car park. And anybody walking past could look into the office or whatever. And then another time, I'd be sat in the dark on my computer, which obviously you can see a bit in the dark. And Eric had come in and said, "What, are you doing work?" "Yeah, I am." "Well, put the lights on then." And like, chalk and cheese. And I always remember one of the best ones. I remember me and Asa Hartford, we had the reserves at home, and we were. I can't remember who we were playing, but it was under the light, or it should have been under the lights later on. And the referee came across the dugout and said, "Can you put the lights on, please?" And that was the norm in those days. And I looked at Asa and I said, "Well, I don't know how to put the lights on." So I shouted Schultzy and said, "Mick, can you turn the lights out?" And out that, where Eric used to sit near the old boardroom, and he just shouted across, "I'll tell you when you can have the lights on." Well, it weren't as polite as that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we can add in what he really said. Yeah. There's
one or two expletives. So I said, "Well, I'm not telling the ref that." And Asa said, "Well, I'm not." And we just sat there and we waited. And anyway, eventually they came on. And as soon as the game finished, they were off.
Yeah. Oh, I know what it was like. So jumping ahead a little bit later on, when John and Jimmy made the move to Rochdale, you ended up getting involved with the first team for a while, didn't you, helping Liam Richardson out?
Yeah, we did. It was always on the cards, and we were sort of making comments to John. Like I'd say to John, "Don't forget, if you want your academy sorting out, I'll come across to Rochdale." And we had this bit of banter going on anyway. And one particular morning we were training. We used to train at Blackburn Rugby Club at the time, and we were. I think it might have been we got there for breakfast or whatever, and I think the deal had been done. I'm not sure if it weren't Andy Proctor, but one of the players come through and just said to me, "Morning, Gaffer," and I thought, because I hadn't been in to see John and Jimmy by then, so I thought, oh well, it looks as though they're going then. And there was a little bit of this banter flying about for a while, and nothing was said. I got on with my job with the apprentices and started training or whatever. And that night, I was actually travelling to Liverpool to watch. I think it was our under-16s play a game in Liverpool, not far from Everton's training ground, Finch Farm. And it was a big sports centre. And as I pulled up into the car park, Mark Turner came on the phone. So I said, "All right, Mark." He said, "All right, Phil, John and Jimmy's gone." I said, "Well, I haven't been confirmed," but he said, "So we'd like you, Liam Richardson and Brian Hughes to take the first team. Can you report in the morning, blah, blah." So I said, "Right, yeah." And I suppose I was a bit in a daze, I suppose. I tried to watch the under-16s and see how they're progressing, but I had on the back of my mind, right, what shall I do for training tomorrow? So I suppose I started planning straight away, thinking about what I should do or how should I deliver the session or whatever, because it was clear that Liam was going to act as the as the manager. I was going to be the coach, and Brian was going to be the sort of on-pitch liaison player coach, if you like. So, and that's how it transpired. I turned up in the morning, we got our heads together, decided what we was going to do. I went and took a session. The players came off, happy enough. There's lots of smiles about. Although we were quite shocked and disappointed to see John and Jimmy going, it was a case of we've got to get on with it, and we did. And that's really my introduction to the Football League, I suppose.
I just want to circle back a bit, Phil. And when we talked about the academy earlier, and I didn't get a chance to follow up there but I wanted to ask, during that time frame, who can you name or give us some names of the best players that you had that were coming through the academy that we may recognize or that went on to bigger and better things?
Well, I don't particularly like to say that this was the best player or these were better players. In my mind, I selected all the best players to play for Accrington Stanley Football Club. But I suppose it's like everything else. They go through the training, and some of them, I suppose, they've achieved when they actually get their apprenticeship and fall off the way, so that they still play a standard of football. But then you see the standout models. I mean, we talk about Robert Grant. There's only me and his mother call him Robert, by the way. And I know he's been called Bobby.
When you're telling him off.
Yeah, I still call him Bobby in front of the players now at Radcliffe, but to me he's Robert. Me and his mum call him Robert. So, but I suppose the way it came about, when I look back at, they were all best players, and I can, I don't want to name too many because I'm going to forget some of the best who became good lads. I know that there's 5 of my former apprentices are all school teachers now. I know that I must have at least 5 that are married and living in America, in American football, or in other jobs. So I mean, I know there's going to be the standout ones. People will say Bobby Grant, because obviously he went on to, he was my first one to actually make the grade, I suppose, to be a pro. And it's ironic, really, because his brother was my captain for the Liverpool County boys. And he came up to me at the end of the season and said, which was the season before I joined Accrington, and said, do you mind if my brother has a trial for the next year? So I said, no, not at all, bring him along. And I saw, we had a trial match, I can't remember who we played, but I played Robert on the left wing. And within 10 minutes, I was phoning John Coleman and saying, quick, get down to Walton Hall Park here. I've got us a player. And that's the history of it. That's where I know he'd fallen out of love with the academy process. So we were quite lucky, really, for his brother, who was my captain, to say, can he have a trial? Another one was I organised some trials, open invitation, I suppose, plus 1 or 2 from Burnley and Blackburn and clubs that had been, players that had been released. And one of them was Chrissy Turner, who again went on to play about 80 games for the first team. But I saw him and I thought, wow, what is he doing here? And sort of, I thought, well, I don't need to worry about Chrissy Turner. Bobby Grant's in the team. So does Chrissy Turner. He ticks the boxes. Then I had Peter Murphy and Jay Bell, Jimmy's lad. Wow, they ticked the bell. So Peter was at Blackpool and had not been given a scholarship. And
Peter was a great player, wasn't he? Often underrated, I think.
He actually played for us when we played Gillingham in our first game as the new management. The 4-3. Never forget it. What a day that was. 4-0 up, and 4-0 up half time, I think we were. And then we ended up 4-3, but it was still a good 3 points. And Peter, he said that we ought to just push him in front of the back four. And he was outstanding that day. I'll tell you another one that who's a teacher now is Andrew Smith, centre forward.
Yeah, I remember him.
He didn't quite come up to expectation when he signed his pro, but he's gone on to be a teacher. He's now at Myerscough College delivering football. So, I'm in contact with a lot of the boys, and to all the boys, I'm sorry if I've not mentioned the names, but obviously there's been a lot in the six and a half years I was there that have come through the system. So if I've not mentioned a few names that have gone on, I suppose one name that I could refer to is young Sykesy, the centre half.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Ross. Yeah.
Yeah.
I signed him as a.
Yeah, he just moved on to Belgium, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I signed him for the academy.
Well, he was definitely a favorite player of mine, and of course, Bobby Grant is a favorite player of mine. He's one of 3 Accrington game jerseys that I have hanging on my wall. And just to kind of move away from Accrington for a minute, I'd like to catch up a bit on what you and Bobby Grant are doing at Radcliffe. Tell us about the season and things over there. How are things at Radcliffe this year?
Well, it's actually it's quite funny, really, because he was actually playing at Radcliffe, and I think they decided to change the manager, and they offered Bobby the player manager role, and he phoned me for some advice and said, "Do you think I think I'm too young to take it?" So I said, "You're never too young if they're offering you a player manager and you want to get some experience, take it." And he said, "Well, would you come and be my assistant? Because I'd like somebody I know to be with me." And I've got a bit of a health problem in the family, not me, but my wife. And I said, "Well, look, I'm really sorry, but I'm coaching a local team who play over the back from my house. I don't spend too long away from the house, unfortunately, so I can't really help you." And he started, obviously, his managerial career, I suppose, last season. And it got to, I think it was about February, he phoned me again and said, "Can I change your mind?" And so I said, "Well, look, I've got to do a lot of questioning with the family, and if I can help you, I'll help you. But you'll have to realise that sometimes I'm not going to be available." And he was, "Well, please have a think about it and come back to me." My family rallied round and said, "Right, if you want to have a go at it, we'll sort things out to make sure that you can have some time to go and do your football." And so I jumped at the chance, and I suppose it's the master and the apprentice, really. His old boss, and now he's my boss. But we like to look on it that I suppose I mentored him as a player, and I'm mentoring him now as a manager, trying to guide him in sort of.
So you're Yoda to his Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes. I haven't got that one though. But it's really they know my predicament, they know my position, how I'm affected, and so the players have accepted it. Obviously, the chairman and the board and the owner. And so I give as much time as I can, but obviously there's times when I'm not able to be there. But it's been a good end to the season. I went in and helped steady the ship, I suppose, and we've had quite a good close season in bringing some players in. Luke Joyce being one of the players that obviously from Accrington, the legend, still plays just the same. It's and it started off well. We drew the first and we won last night. So it's a good start, and hopefully we can kick on and fulfil the objectives we've set out to do. And I give as much assistance, mentorship, help as I can to Bobby in his managerial career.
I think, obviously Luke Joyce, he's another person great lad we've had on this podcast as well. I think I'll make an effort to have a look over at Radcliffe if Stanley are away down south this season and check out a game. So I do miss non-league football a little bit, even though it's great being in the Football League. There's something special about it, isn't there, Phil?
Certainly is, yeah.
You know what? I've enjoyed this listening to Phil's stories, because a couple of especially the players that he's worked with, and what struck me is a common theme throughout is Phil's mentoring of coaches and players, and I think that's something that doesn't get mentioned enough. That it's a key ingredient to a player's success and a coach's success. So. My hat's off to you, Phil, and appreciate you coming on and talking to us. And we wish you all the best in your present situation. And thanks for doing this.
Thank you. What I would say is, through my coach education qualifications for the FA, I used to sort of help if they ever wanted any help, the pros, when they were doing their badges. That's how I was sort of involved with the first team as well. I helped Liam Richardson, Sean Essie. That's how he invited me to Marine. So I was sort of, I suppose, mentoring Sean as well, although, the title's assistant manager. And we went on to have the Great Escape the first season. We won the Cup the second season. And then I got sacked for the first time in my life the next. But that's football.
Brutal game.
Yeah.
It happens to the best, doesn't it? Even Coley's been sacked, hasn't he? At Rochdale.
Yeah, well, true. Yeah.
I mean, here in Phoenix, I just sent over an article. Our Phoenix Rising manager Rick Schatz was sacked, and he just had to be the championship finals 2 years ago. So it's a brutal game.
Well, I think in that professional sports, especially football, and it's the same over in North America. They say you're hired to be fired, and I think there's a few exceptions to that rule, but generally that seems to be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the good things about following Accrington Stanley is who the manager's going to be every year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you'll know that you'll get 100%.
Yeah, that's without a doubt.
I'd just like to thank Phil for coming on. Obviously, a lot of these things have been tied together now. Obviously, Chris Turner came on, and then he's been to a match since, and I think that was a bit therapeutic for Chris Turner, another one of Phil's students. Not been to a Stanley game for over 10 years, and it's just nice to catch up with people, and it evokes memories, doesn't it? And people, want to hear it. Yeah.
I just wanted to thank you not only for coming onto the show, but for all of the contributions that you made to Stanley. I mean, certainly, the names that you mentioned, like Bobby Grant, Ross Sykes, two of my favorite Stanley players ever, and I want to wish you a lot of success in your coaching career as things continue over at Radcliffe. And once again, I just want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show with us today. We've really enjoyed all of your stories, and would love to have you on again in the future.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I'll try and dig out. I've still got all my information from my Stanley days, so I could dig out one or two players, I'm sure, and get you some stories.
Oh, that sounds great.
Well, we look forward to it, and we like to finish up with an on Stanley on. So if everybody's ready, 1, 2, 3, on Stanley on.
On Stanley on. Cheers, Phil.
Cheers, Phil.
Cheers, guys. Thanks, Phil.
Cheers, guys.